Hey, girls and guys. So, welcome to another episode of On the Couch with us. And this evening, we've got another guest that we're really excited to chat to. A lot of you will know him. A lot of you will know his shop. A lot of you will know his dad. And we're super excited to have SJ over from Revolution Cycles. So, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Super excited. We know that you, like most people that we've spoken to on the podcast now, have a massive history in cycling, and we're super excited to just pick your brain a little bit, especially when it comes to the retail side of things. You have a very successful store, you've got a great history, and we are going to dissect all of that this evening. So,
Awesome.
Yeah, I think just to start with, welcome, and I don't know, do you just want to tell us how this all got started?
So
I know it's a long story, so we're going to condense it a little.
we'll condense it. So when I was a teenager, I was a keen cyclist with my dad. We did a lot of Neisner, Oyster Festival rides, Arguses. And then when I hit 16, I got a scooter and a motorbike, and the cycling kind of fell away. I went to varsity. After varsity, got a job sitting behind a desk.
No
and
way.
Realized this ain't for me. And I went to my dad. He was with Getaway Magazine. He had already put in his resignation, so he was leaving soon. I said, Dad, come, let's start a little bicycle shop together. And that's what happened. 2007, we started our shop. And
Wait. So before the shop, what did you study?
Okay,
Because I've heard a lot of rumors.
Okay, so I was really good at maths, and I was really good at accounting. And so I went to UCT. I was like, okay, I'm going to do a business course, and what business course involves maths? And so I studied actuarial science.
Whoa.
And I finished it. I did it in my 4 years. I never took it further.
Dude, that's a serious course.
Yeah, it was pretty serious. It was pretty full on. I mean, I knew after the first year that this probably wasn't for me, but I was a proud 18, 19-year-old, and I finished it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Respect. Yeah. That's massive.
Yeah. And then I went into trading, and I enjoyed the job. I just didn't enjoy the aspects of being at a computer 8-9 hours a day. I think I picked up like 15 kilos, and it's just like, you know what, this.
But when you were at school, did you do a lot of sports?
Yeah, everything I could get my hands on.
So this was a massive change from where you had come from.
Yeah, I mean, at school I tried to do everything I could. So from an early days, my mom said to me, "Listen, I'm picking up at 4. What you do between school ending and 4 o'clock is up to you." So if there was an activity to sign up to, I did it. Whether it was sport, whether it was drama, whether it was the band, I did it all. So.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. So now you've got this fantastic degree, and you said, Dad, I'm done with this.
I'm done. I'm like, I gave it a year and a half. I was like, maybe I'll get back into it. Maybe I'll further my studies a bit. But yeah, let's just open a little bike shop. And the initial idea was that it was going to be his little retirement business. So he was going to leave the big corporate world and he was going to have this small little shop. And so I ran the shop for a couple of months, and then he joined me. And we probably ran the shop for about a year and a half.
Where was that based?
In Bree Street. So my dad already had a little Thule shop that he had started. And there was an area that was perfect to have a few bikes. And so I said, come, let's start it in this area.
And sorry to break your word there, was that where the old Thule...
Where Thule is now.
Where Thule is right now?
Where Thule is now, yeah.
No ways, okay.
And then a year and a half in, I got a bee in my bonnet to get real and serious again.
Yeah.
And I went back into the working world. And while I was in the working world, and this is key, so now my dad was running the shop, and we had a shop manager and whatever. He got approached by Specialized. And Specialized said, listen, we're not happy with our current Cape Town dealer. Would you guys like to be a Specialized dealer? And he came to me, I was like, SJ, we were approached by Specialized. I was like, no, they're too big for us. We'll never make it work. He's like, no, we'll make it work. And about 6 months after we took on Specialized.
Dude, I got your dad's voice in my head that I can hear.
And I was like, we're biting off way too much, that we can choose. So anyway, he took it on. About 6 months in, I realized that there was a good reason I stopped in the corporate world the first time, and I stopped the second time, and I went back into the shop. But now, instead of it being his retirement business, we both knew it was time to grow the business with the Specialized brand, and this would potentially be my career. So that was quite a nice turning point. Also, by that point, working with family is not easy.
No, that was my next question. I mean, everyone talks about it. As good as your relationship is with family at times, when you start working with them, that starts to deteriorate. over time.
It's not easy. So him and I had to both learn what his, I would say, faux pas are and what my faux pas are, and learn to accept them.
Yeah.
And that him and I probably have a big fight once a year, but it's not like, that's not.
But I suppose by now you should be bringing out the best in each other.
Totally. And it's usually a fight over there's a customer interaction, and I don't agree with him or he doesn't agree with me on what's happened or what the outcome was, and that's normal.
It's more about the customer. It's not really about business.
I could have had that same fight with the store manager.
Yes.
It just happens to be my father.
Yeah.
So, but most of the time we're on the same page and we have each other's backs. And he's very funny in his way, and
your dad's a legend.
Yeah, he's hilarious.
But you guys have obviously. So that was, what year was that? That was
2011.
2011.
Yeah. And
so you then moved across to where you are now.
So then I went back to Specialized, and to Revolution Cycles with Specialized, and about a year later, Specialized International came into South Africa and bought out the local distributor. So that the Specialized was now a subsidiary of Specialized USA. And they had this new business model, which in retrospect was the right thing to do, of going concept store for their stores. They realized that the retail environment we were living in was changing. Your traditional bicycle shop didn't really have a future. You had to be quite a specific shop to have a future. And they incentivized us to become a Specialized store. We had to jump through some hoops, and contracts were drawn up, which to this day we still honor those contracts. But the point was to then become a much bigger store that sold, I say only Specialized. It's only Specialized if Specialized make it. So Specialized make helmets, we sell only Specialized helmets. They make shoes, we only sell Specialized shoes. But I can sell Lear protection because Specialized don't make protection.
Yeah. But sorry, I need to ask. So what is the difference between, I need to understand this. So what is the difference between an old school bike shop and a concept store?
Okay, so old school bike shop is generally multi-brand on both bikes and accessories. It is quite old school in its retail layout, so it's not putting huge amounts of emphasis into the merchandising of things.
Okay.
So you'll walk in and there will be 7 nutrition brands that are sporadically placed on a shelf, and there'll be 6 tube brands, and there'll be 4 wash brands, and there'll be 100 lube brands, and then there'll be a workshop that's kind of stuck in the corner. So it was.
I can picture a few bike shops right now.
Yeah. And ironically, only the big ones will carry on going because they've got so much stock and so much sway that if you kind of looking for something random, there's a good chance they'll have it.
Yes, yeah.
But your normal size stores were always going to get plowed by online stores because online stores can do it. They can do multi-brand and they can do, variety and price a lot better.
Yeah.
So Specialized went down the concept store route, and our vision was to be like an Audi dealership or a BMW dealership or an iStore, or those were the big picture ones. But we also had to realize that a bike shop has a lot more product in it. We also have a workshop that we have to consider, and there are other factors. But Specialized said concept store, minimum size 350 square meters, and we were like, ooh, okay, we need new premises. So we were quite lucky. The building next door was busy being demolished, and we went to the developer and owner and said, we would like to be your retail anchor tenant. And, it was between us and a Persian carpet store, and thankfully we got it.
Yeah.
And so we're now in that building. We've been there since 2014. And yeah, it's been great.
But you guys have built quite a reputation, not just around Specialized, but around who you and your dad are, Revolution Cycles. I mean, your name's known pretty much everywhere.
So when we went the Specialized route, one of the things I said to my dad is like, Dad, we are not going down the route of calling ourselves Specialized Cape Town.
Yeah.
Because, and this was also a business decision, like, what if Specialized pulls the rug out from underneath us? Now, all we're known for is Specialized.
Yeah.
So we made it quite clear, like, as a business decision, that we would market ourselves
And they were okay with
be
that.
Revolution Cycles. Yes, I think they quite like, and part of their strategy was to have owners on the floor. But it only came later that they started owning their own shops.
Yeah.
But at the start, it was like, we don't want you to have multiple stores. We don't want franchise stores. We want each store to be owned by a person who's on the shop floor. And so we've been very strong about keeping that Revolution Cycles name. And not, I mean, even if you go to our shop, we've got very limited Specialized branding. Go onto our website, there's limited Specialized branding.
Yeah. Well, that's what I wanted to ask. Like, if you had to compare yourselves to Specialized Stellenbosch or Tygerberg, or your store is it's a bit different.
Yeah, it is different, and it's because we don't want to be painted with all the things that Specialized do. Because as much as my favorite brand, I think is the brand that innovates the most. I'm very lucky to be a Specialized dealer. Also with the boom in e-bikes, and I think Specialized are the leader in e-bikes. So, you know, we've ridden that wave and got lucky because we became Specialized dealers in 2012. E-bikes only came in 2017.
Yes,
so we got lucky with that. But in the same time, like, if someone walks into my store and asks advice, I don't want them to always think I'm Specialized.
Yeah.
Like, at first, I love bicycles and I love riding bicycles.
Yeah.
And there's lots of other bikes that I like that are not Specialized.
Yeah.
So I never wanted to become Mr. Specialized.
So I have a Giant, and it needs a bottom bracket. I can come to you guys.
Yes. We have, as a store, some rules, but it's got nothing to do with brand. Like, the bike has to be a certain age for us, because I don't want to carry spare parts for V-brakes. I haven't sold a bike with V-brakes in 10 years. So we have certain rules on the age of a bike or the type of bike. You know, I don't carry BMX parts. I don't carry tandem parts. I carry very limited triathlon parts, you know, for tri-bikes. So, yes, we have categories and genres that we're not going to work on, or the age of a bike.
Yeah.
But as long as it's a modern, you know, brand, I'm happy to work on it.
And you guys, I mean, a lot of people listening are probably going to be on the hub, and everyone's very active. I'm going to ask the question.
Yes.
Someone comes in and you recommend them to do something and they don't want to do it. How would you approach something like that?
It is a very good question, because it is case by case.
Okay.
But in my opinion, if it's critical to the way the bike rides and they're not willing to do it, I'll send them somewhere else.
Okay.
So let's call them shortcuts. I don't want to take shortcuts. I'm happy for a person to choose the lower level service, or to postpone something, a shock service or a fork service. But if their brakes don't work and they've brought their bike in because the BB is making a sound, I'm going to say, well, you're either going to do all of it, or you're going to go somewhere that's willing to take shortcuts.
Yeah.
And it's a weird one, because at that moment, I'm not wearing my shop owner's hat. I'm
Yes.
wearing my rider's hat.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, this bike needs to be safe enough and enjoyable enough to go out on the trail and ride. Because what will end up happening is, if we do take the shortcut, so we just fix the BB and we don't fix the brakes, there's no telling whether the customer now goes for a ride with his chummies and his brakes don't work, and he's like, oh, my bike was just at Revolution.
Yes.
He doesn't give the context that he only gave the go-ahead for the BB.
Yeah.
So you're protecting your store reputation, you're protecting the customer in the end. And it's not always easy to say it in a nice way.
Yes.
And say, listen, I'm not taking shortcuts. You know, I'd suggest
Yeah.
a different store. So
How do you approach, or how do you deal with the keyboard warriors of these days? Because people are so quick, good or bad service, to jump onto, and without context, to jump onto, we all know the platform we're talking about.
Totally.
The internet, it has given us access to all sorts of social media. How do you defend your brand in a good way?
There's no easy answer. I think it's changed. I think 5 years ago, the American idea of the customer's always right would fly. But I think now... I think people respect a response.
Yeah.
So 5 years ago, you'd like ignore it and hope it simmered down and let the next news cycle to kind of come along.
Yeah.
Nowadays, people want the fight. So they want the response of the shop owner. So if I give you two examples of real world things, 5 years ago, I had a customer bring in a bike and the back tire was flat. And it was a cruiser with an internally routed rear hub. It required disassembling the whole back end of the bike to put the tube in. And I said to him, I'm sorry, but we just don't work on these bikes. We don't work on bikes with Nexus hubs. And if we get it wrong and now your gears are all out, we can't fix it.
Yes.
So you're going to have to go somewhere that has experience with commuter and cruiser bikes. So I recommended Woodstock Cycle Works. This was a Saturday morning. Well, yeah. That afternoon, the individual posted on Facebook, because at the time Bike Hub wasn't as big, and first on Facebook on our website, about how we refused to change the tube on his bicycle. So he made it sound super simplistic. He never mentioned any of the context of what kind of bike it is. And I was having a braai at home, and I had a few friends around, and I told them about this, and they're like, Esther, you got to post. I was like, no, why don't you guys all post? Why don't you guys all take the mickey out of him? And so my first friend posts, if it was just a tube and it was so easy, why didn't you do it yourself? And he wrote back, he's like, oh, I was sick and I didn't have the tools and no. And then my next buddy wrote, cool story, bro. And that completely diffused this negative post on my website. Yeah. And I didn't have to step in. But that was 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Now I had a recent one where, a guy didn't want to pay his bill, and the bill was very small. I mean, it was very small.
So it was more principle than.
Well, the bill was 1,200 rand or somewhere around there. The agreed amount of work that he had agreed to was 900 rand, and the brake pads that we replaced because his brake pads were shot. And I say it was his wife's bike, and that his wife and his mom rides, which he had told us, with 300 rand. So we did it. I was like, don't bother the customer. He's a busy guy. It's 2 sets of brake pads. Just do it. And he refused to pay the bill. And him and I had a nice interaction in the store. And he left and he slandered me all over Bike Up. And I left it for 2 days. And I was getting, obviously you can imagine, WhatsApped from every direction. SJ, look what this guy's saying. And obviously the first responders on Bike Up agree with him because that's the natural way to go. One or two.
But also, they don't know the context.
They don't know the context. So one or two of my buddies went on, and they didn't know the context either. I remember one of my buddies said, "That's not the SJ I know." That was just the simple comment, which I respected. But 2 days in, and I'd been just hammered by people saying, "You must respond, you must respond." And eventually, I responded, and it did turn the whole thing around. And I'm glad I responded, and it also took a huge weight off my chest because
It can't be easy.
It can't be easy, right? Thankfully, this doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with service or whatever. It's because most people aren't going to go that route. Usually you can resolve it in the store. And usually there is an element of someone being in the wrong or both being in the wrong or a miscommunication, and you can usually get over it.
But I think that's the important thing is, right, sometimes we as people, or I'm saying customers, are not always right. Sometimes the bike shop owners aren't right. I mean, as long as you're honest with yourself, you can kind of put these things to bed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, dude, I don't envy being in your situation.
I'm going to tell you a few of the tips and tricks, right? So I've seen bike shop owners through the years and the wear and tear it takes on their psyche.
Yeah.
And I've seen them become more and more negative.
Yeah.
And so one has to do things to stop that from happening. One of the things you got to remember, the 99 out of 100 customers that you have good relationships with, you have to remember all the positive reviews and phone calls and emails. Oh, I just got my bike back from a service and it's feeling fantastic. Those way outweigh the negatives. So you've got to always try to remember those things. You've also got to, I think a lot of shop owners don't necessarily do it, interact with other shop owners. So I will visit lots of other shops who people call my competitors. I call them my allies because they help me when I need help and I help them when they need help. And we tell the same stories. I mean, it's a different customer or a different interaction, but you realize that you're not fighting this one fight. Like all of you are experiencing the normal, interactions in retail. I'll talk to shop owners in other industries, and they have similar things.
Yes, yeah.
So,
but I think it's interesting you mentioned that. That was going to be my next question, actually. In the CBD space, there are so many, I wouldn't say competing bike shops. There are so many bike shops. How do you, I mean, obviously there's a lot of people to go around and there's a lot of customers and there's all of those kind of things. But like, is there a good working relationship between the people in the close proximity?
I'm going to say most of us, and I'm sure that's the same for any district. I can't be everybody's friend, but I also can't be everybody's enemy. I'll use a very easy example. John O'Connor and my store gets along very well. Yes, he is a bit more road focused. Yes, I'm a bit more mountain bike focused. But we don't do many competing brands. I mean, I think we do a few things that are the same, maybe some same nutrition brands or this or that. But if I've got a Cannondale issue, as an example, or I need a hanger, like I'll be like, John, do you have the hanger for this bike? Oh, sure, come over. Or if he's got a specialized issue, he'll lean on me. So that's why when I talk about allies, it's because if we work together, it's going to be much better than if we at each other's throats. But there are also other stores where, and it's actually got less to do with what they sell or whatever. It's more of a personality clash or a difference in opinion in the way that they run their store or what they put importance on. But that's totally normal as well. So, I talk about my allies. Obviously, you've had Andrew Savage on the channel before, and him and I ride a lot together. But we send virtually all of our suspension to Stoke to get serviced. You scratch my back, I scratch your bike back. I don't have to carry all those spares. I don't have to have that knowledge in my workshop. I don't have to have that space allocated in my workshop. I'll do the basics like lowers and whatnot, but at least I know if I'm sending it to them, it's going to be done properly. If there's a bigger issue than just a service, they will pick it up. They will solve it. So they're my suspension guys, and they're one of my allies. And there's guys who do my paint work. Or if I've got a Trek issue, I'll get a hold of Gear Change. I've got a great relationship with them. Or if they've got a specialized issue, they'll get a hold of me. So, we do try work together. Ironically, my biggest competition comes within the specialized group because you're competing on the same product. Yeah. But again, like there are certain specialized stores that I'll work very well with, and there's certain specialized stores that I know I'm competing directly against.
But I think before we come to the retail space, which we're going to chat about and how this actually works, egos in the ownership of cycle stores, is there really?
Yes,
maybe?
There is, No, there definitely is,
Okay.
There definitely is. And certain egos work well together and certain egos don't.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's no different to having a friend or picking a girlfriend
Fair
or
enough.
a boyfriend.
Yeah.
Or even in corporates, you'll have colleagues that you get along with and colleagues you don't.
Yeah.
So, that's very much.
So, it's something that I'm not sure how it works, and there's a couple of these theories that we just want to debunk. How do these modern retail shops work, especially a shop like yours, with all the stock in it? There's all these theories that things are on consignment. Do you buy bikes in? Like, how does it work? I mean, I don't want to know the numbers, or I just want to understand how does your business function?
Okay, so before I get to the specifics of my business, I'll say that in the bicycle retail world, there's about 4 different kind of avenues you can choose. You can choose to be an online store, right? You can choose to be what I'm going to call it a trailhead store, so a store near a trailhead.
Yeah.
You can choose to be a massive multi-brand store, because I don't think the small ones can exist. You can choose to be a workshop-orientated store, which is often in the more outlying areas because rent's much cheaper, because you just don't make as much on the workshop. So you need to be in the more industrial or outlying areas. And then you can choose to be a concept store. That's kind of the modern world of retail that we're living in now. And you're seeing it with Giant and a concept store.
Yes.
Trek and their concept store. Specialized, obviously, as well. Then you come down to my store, and everything in my shop I own. There's not a single thing on consignment. There's 2 reasons for it.
No ways. Okay.
Consignment stock usually comes with lower markups, and I can't afford to have low markups given the rent I pay, the salaries I pay, etc. I need to make as much as I can per product to cover my costs. The other thing is that if you're selling a successful brand, that successful brand doesn't need to be on consignment because the shop down the road will buy it. So generally, the only stuff that's on consignment is stuff trying to make an entry into the market, trying to compete. But if it's a well-established brand, they don't need to be on consignment. Therefore, I have to buy it. So everything in my shop I own. So, which is millions and millions of rand.
But this is what I'm saying. That's either a very big investment or it's you putting massive trust in a brand.
So it's both. Obviously, I didn't start the shop the size it is. We've grown to the store.
Yes.
So for 10 years, we've reinvested and gotten a bit bigger. Yeah. Pushed our snowball down the hill and it's gotten a bit bigger. Yeah. It's a pretty daunting task if I had to say to someone, okay, Neisner Plet is boomed after COVID, but it doesn't have a specialized store. You should open a specialized store there because they're going to be in for 10 million rand.
Yeah.
Like you can't do what I did 15 years ago and start it with 30 bicycles. Half of them were on consignment and half of them we bought and grow it organically. It's not realistic.
You also just don't have the time right now because the market's so big.
Yeah.
So if you're going to come in, you're going to want to make an impact.
Totally.
And you can't make an impact with a small investment.
Totally. So for us as retail stores, and I'm talking about brick and mortar, like me as a concept store, we own all our stock and we need to maximize our margins. So it's not that I buy product based on margin, but we need to try and limit our discounting. We need to try and have as much stock available so that if a customer walks in and they're a different size or they want a different color, it's there, it's ready to be sold. But on the same side, we also limit what we sell. So I only sell 3 or 4 nutrition brands. I only sell 2 bike wash brands. If it's specialized, it's a specialized thing. So it'll be helmets, gloves, saddle shoes, etc. A lot of it's because that's what the brands that I've tested personally or have a great reputation already. So I know I'm selling something good. Often it's because I know the warranties are looked after well.
Yes.
So I can sell it to someone and say, listen, this line dropper post, it's going to be looked after. Don't worry that it costs half what the other dropper posts cost. It's just as good and the backup locally is better.
Yeah.
So buy this line dropper. I was actually one of the first retail stores to sell line because I said to Dale when he started selling, Dale, you're killing us, bro. We can't sell droppers.
It's
Your
crazy,
droppers are too good.
Yeah.
And like, I can't sell droppers for double when I know you're selling it. What can we do? What volume discount can you give me if I buy them? And he didn't change his whole business model, but he added a business to business section to his to deal with that volume. So so we got to try and maximize our volume and our margin. But what people also don't realize is that bicycle shops have a reputation for making the most, having high margins, and we do make the highest margins in the entire chain. The manufacturer makes the smallest margin, but they've got the biggest volumes.
Yes.
The importer makes smaller margins than I do, but they've got the entire country's worth of volume. And then it gets to the retailer who makes the biggest margin, but it's got the lowest volumes.
I was going to say,
and the highest costs per capita.
Yeah.
So my staff cost more because it's not warehouse staff. My shop rental costs more because it's retail square meterage. It's not warehouse square meterage.
And also your location is
my
prime.
location is prime. I mean, my shop is not a great example of rental because I think I pay 3 times more than any of the other specialized stores per square meter in the Western Cape. But so our costs are much higher. So we have to make the margin just to cover those costs.
Next question. Someone walks into your store, so you say you obviously buy your bikes outright, but I'm looking for a specialized that is not on your floor. Can I still get one of those through you guys?
So there are 3 scenarios. A lot of customers will walk in having seen a specialized on an international site.
Yes.
Then if it's not brought into South Africa, there's no such thing as a special order or a this or that. It ain't happening. Specialized in South Africa are too big and offer too much warranty backup to have a one-off in the country. Because they can't have, like, there's a beautiful bike called the Cirrus 6.0, this beautiful commuter bike, this crazy frame shape. I'd love to have one for myself.
Yeah.
But Specialized, but if we're only going to bring in 3, what are we going to do if there's a warranty? We want to carry warranty stock for every single bike we bring in.
It's so interesting. People don't think about that.
No. And that's why Specialized can turn around a warranty quicker than most. So the international stuff's very difficult. But if you come in and it's something you've seen on the Specialized South Africa website or at another store,
Different story.
yeah. Then it's about one of two things. One is, do Specialized have stock in the warehouse? Then it's easy, I just order it. Or, okay, Specialized don't have any more stock. I don't have the right size or the right color. Now I need to lean on the dealer network. And that's where I'll lean on the stores that first, obviously, the stores that I get along really well with. And in the old days, we used to have to get all the Specialized head office and say, who has this bike? Or send out a bulk email to everyone.
Yes.
Now we've got an internal system that we can check who has that bike.
And then you can just
stock.
go to a retailer, you can go to head office, you can...
Yeah, so then let's say Mike at Tigerberg has it. And Mike and I get along very well. We have lots of similar interests outside of cycling. So I'll get hold of Mike and say, Mike, listen, you've got a large in black on your floor. I've got a customer who wants it. I've got a medium. Do you want to do a swap or can I buy it from you outright? And usually the other dealer will say yes, unless they've got a pending sale or something's happening. And sometimes it's at a slight increase in price to the normal cost price, which is fine. They took the risk originally to buy the bike.
Yeah.
They've had it on their floor. They've had to build it up. They're going to have to box it again when I courier it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's totally fine. So we have good relationships between the dealer network. And again, we're all in the same boat. You know?
Yes.
We're all facing the same
You
challenges.
should be scratching each other's backs.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. But human nature comes into it as well. So I will lean on the stores that
Doesn't it
I
always?
have a good relationship with, and they'll lean on me. So that's totally fine.
Well, coming back to price,
Yes.
sorry, this is a pet peeve of mine, but I need to ask the question. Like I know enough people in the industry now to appreciate how annoying it is to them, and I'm sure there's a place for it, but discounts. Like, so COVID came and we find this massive boom in cycling and outdoor sports and all of these things, and these brands make all of the stock, and now it's starting to peter off and we can't turn stock as quickly as possible. So now the forefront of everyone's minds is, I'm going to go into a cycle store, I want to buy a bike, but I want a 40% discount. Like, realistically, is that, I just want to put this to bed, is that possible?
In South Africa, no. So the overstock crisis specifically that the world of cycling is currently going through is mainly in Europe and America, and I know a little bit in Australia as well. But those are the markets that are supplied first, have massive warehouses, and sell volumes that are hard for you and me to fathom. So they stocked up for what they predicted they'd sell, and it didn't happen, and now they've got this overstock crisis. So they will have big discounting and slashing prices, etc. In South Africa, we're lucky in a sense that these things happen in a delayed manner.
Yes.
So we can plan better. So the South African importer can see, ooh, there's this overstock crisis happening in America and Europe. Slow down our ordering. And we can,
You can kind of manage it.
we can manage it a lot better.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not perfect. There are certain brands or certain bikes that are overstocked, but much better. If you look currently, for example, we've got our stump jumpers on special, but part of it's because we're just about to launch or have just launched a new stump jumper.
We'll come to that.
So it's not just overstock discount. It's
Yes.
also about moving the previous generation to make space for the new generation, to make cash flow to buy the new generation, etc. Then in terms of just walking into a shop and asking for discount, what a lot of people don't know is that all of that stock that I own, I bought for the original price. When Specialized dropped the price, there's no price protection. There's no like, here's a credit on your account, for the new cost price difference. So ironically, the best stores, the stores that carry stock, take the biggest knock when this kind of thing happens.
Yeah.
And the way we deal with it is by trying to sell more. So I will order a couple of extra bikes to kind of average my cost price a bit lower.
But that you then run the risk of having those bikes sit on the floor for a bit longer.
Totally. No, there's all of those risks. So yes, if it's a discount that's been set by Specialized, we'll honor it. But if it's someone just walking in and asking for a discount, then it's a case-by-case basis. If it's a bike, we don't make nearly as much margin on a bike as we do on normal accessories and parts.
Yeah.
So the discount can't be as high. What did we will know, but what did we pay for the bike, or can we give a discount, or how old is it, or those things will make it. If it's the latest model, or I know that the supply is limited, I'm not going to give discount because I know I have one of very few. If it's a super popular color, and all of those things do come into it.
Okay.
But there's the ethical side of discounts as well. We as dealers, we as shop owners, way prefer giving discounts to our regular customers. If it's a random oak off the street asking for a discount, you take it a bit personally rather than a regular walking in that you want to look after. They're going to have repeat business.
Yes. Yeah.
They've maybe bought bikes from you in the past, or they service their bikes with you. So you want to look after those customers, and because they support your business. So.
Yeah, that's crazy. So you've got, I don't know, in my head, how it would work in most bike stores. You've got the retail side, and you've got the service center. You say there's no money, or not no money, but your margins are not as high on the service center side. But it's as important as the retail?
Yes, it is. It's the heart of a good bicycle shop.
Okay.
It really is. We take our service center very seriously. But if I can run my service center at break even, I'll be happy. And it's because the level of mechanic we are employing is high. The level of bikes we're working on, whether it's an advanced road bike with Di2 and everything's now electronic, or whether it's an e-bike, or whether it's this new flight attendant or whatever it is, I have very smart human beings working in my workshop, and they are watching YouTube videos and tutorials every day, keeping up to pace with
that. Must be crazy though, because if you look at the pace of development when it comes to technology on mountain bikes. I was watching a couple of videos coming out of Eurobike this week, and the new DJI motors and those fancy things. But if you take that all the way back to the technician that works in the service center, they need to be able to work on all of those products.
Yeah, and they're different, like different torque settings, different bolt styles, different threads. Just the basic mechanics of it are different, let alone how to set something, what software to use, what tool to use. I mean, once a week, I get asked to buy a new tool for the workshop.
Crazy.
So, I mean, that's part of it. Plus, there's the space my workshop takes, and maybe this is more specific to my store. The rental's the same as my retail floor.
Yeah.
I pay for 350 square meters at a square meter price. It's like retail, 200 square meters, that's going to be higher.
Yes.
And workshop and storeroom and kitchen and all that stuff, wash bay is going to be less. No, it's one price. So for us to cover those overheads, just the space and just the mechanics, you got to do.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And we can't. Labor in South Africa is not valued enough to cover those costs.
Yeah.
If I was charging European labor rates or American labor
no
rates,
one would come to you.
No one would come to us.
Yes.
I mean, I cover my costs.
Yes.
But no one would come to us. So that's one of the difficulties with a workshop in a modern bike store, which is why we're seeing more and more workshop dedicated stores. Where that's what they do, but they will be in outlying areas. Maybe they'll have collection and delivery services and stuff to try to help the customer, but they almost need warehouse space.
If I can ask you, and this is a question that we've been posed a couple of times now, which is weird. Someone wants to come in and wants to become a bike technician. Are there courses, or do you just come in? I don't know. How do you just need a love for bikes, or where did your guys start?
No, I've seen all kinds of starts. So there are courses. There's actually a course up in Joburg that's quite highly renowned. The conundrum is that course will tell you the basics, but it's not, even the course material can't keep up with what's happening in the modern world. So then it moves from there to becoming possibly a junior mechanic, where you will work next to, like literally physically next to or physically opposite a more senior mechanic, and you will learn through experience. That's the one way. And then that just takes time and age and whatever. That's the one way. The other way that I've seen it is I've seen a couple of guys in my 50 years odd where they started as a bike washer and
Wow.
went from being a bike washer to a junior mechanic to a more
That's
senior
inspirational.
mechanic. Yeah.
That's cool.
I mean, one of my favorite stories is my previous head mechanic, Alex, who now works at Olympic Cycles. He was a car guard outside Willy Engelbrecht. And Willy Engelbrecht said, I need a bike washer, come wash bikes. And eventually he worked his way through a few bike shops, and I employed him. He was in Durbanville. I employed him as my head mechanic quite a few years ago. And a couple of years ago, he moved on, and he's now at Olympic Cycles as one of their main mechanics. So
Wow.
that's a pretty cool story.
That is-
one of my favorites is we had a Malawian guy. He now works at the bike Constantia, bike park
Yes.
Constantia,
Okay.
Onyx. A customer came in and said, I've got this guy, he's my gardener, but I've got him to fix my bike and my kids' bikes. And he's got a knack for it. You've got to employ him. So I was like, okay, well, we're looking for a bike washer. I'll employ him Monday to Saturday. So no, Monday to Friday, because I still need him on a Saturday. Cool. I employed him. It was true. This guy had a finesse for working on mechanical things like bicycles. And he quickly moved up and became my second highest mechanic underneath Alex. And we paid him accordingly, and he did quite well. And he eventually came to said, SJ, it's time for me to move back to Malawi, which he did. It didn't work out. And when he moved back from Malawi, he went to the bike park in Constantia, but also started as a gardener. So that is maybe a more African way that it happens.
Yes. Yeah.
But we definitely see those amazing success stories as well.
Dude, you must see so many cool things in the industry.
Yeah, I do.
Are you tired yet, though?
No, well, as you said, everything's advancing and changing and improving so
Yeah.
much that no, I'm not tired. I could have made more money as an actuary, but would I have made enough money to buy all the cool bicycle stuff that I get now?
Would you be as happy as
I
you
wouldn't
are
be
now?
as happy as
Because let's be honest, like a lot of people say money makes you happy. I don't. Money makes life easier. I think that's what, in my head, it really definitely makes it easier. But being outdoors is what makes us happy.
Totally. The endorphins, the adrenaline when we do something like mountain biking or something exciting, that kind of achievement of getting better. So entering an enduro and then a year later entering the same enduro and finishing a few places higher, or beating that friend that used to be faster than you, or going overseas and riding trails that are way out of your ability, but by the end of
Have
that
you been
week-
overseas?
Yeah, a few times.
Oh,
yeah. And at the end of the week, you're like, what was scaring me on day one is now feeling quite natural on day 6, those skills that you develop.
So we had to ask, your favorite trail in Cape Town? I know it can't be easy. You ride a lot.
It's easy. Jonkershoek is my favorite
Oh,
trail
there we go.
network.
Thank goodness you agreed.
It's my favorite trail network. But I also have to give a shout out to Conti's, because for me it's very easy to get to. And Conti's is, unless it's very windy or very hot, it's an amazing winter trail. It drains very well. There's lots of options, easy parking. Obviously the brewery.
I was going to say the beer and the pizza.
So the coffee before the ride and then the brewery. So I'm a huge fan of Conti's, and the way that Rob has expanded it and developed it. But just as a trail network, for me, it's Yonkers. And for when I go to Yonkers, it's a treat. It really is a treat. I'm also a big fan of Val van Pas if you want a big day out. So that's kind of my big day out place. But I go to Yonkers.
A certain Mr. Savage has promised to take us there.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sure you are more than welcome to join us.
Well, if
when we
he's
do
joining,
it.
I might have to be giving him an e-bike because,
Dude, I rode with him a couple of weeks ago just before we met you guys. And I've realized that I need an e-bike to keep up with him.
Yeah.
That man's, But anyway, talking about bikes, if we can just bring it back quickly. 2-3 days ago, I say you guys, as in the Specialized Collective, launched the new Stump Jumper.
Yes.
Met with mixed reviews, but you said something very interesting before we started the podcast, is that people who come to you and ask you your thoughts on it, you haven't had enough time to have a look at it and give your opinion. Do you just want to explain to people that come in and ask for opinions on new bikes, like what is your response to questions like that?
So there's 3 ways that I'll garner an opinion. The one is by actually using the product myself, which is not always easy. I can't have every bike in the fleet.
Yeah.
I also can't afford to, as a business owner, take that first stump jumper that arrives in my store and make it my own.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. There's got to be a decent stock supply before I'm like, okay, I'll
Yes.
take a stump jumper.
Yeah.
So number one would be to use the product myself, whether it's a nutrition product, which is much easier, or the bike, which is much harder.
Yeah.
That's the first one. Sometimes with some new product, if there's decent stock available, Specialized themselves will have a fleet and they'll invite the dealers to try it, like we've done with the Epics, which the Epic 8 and the
Yes.
Epic 8
Yeah,
Evo
yeah.
and the Epic World Cup. Then I can give you an easy opinion on that because I've ridden it. Number two is reading reviews. Obviously, I try to read the reviews from the reputable websites, as well as one or two like really offbeat ones.
You want to get both sides
Yeah.
of the...
But it's too early because like a first ride review, when there's froth and when there's all the dealers and
Yeah.
all the journalists, they've been invited to some exotic location and they've been plowed with
And Specialized knows how to
hospitality,
do it.
you know?
Let's just be honest.
You're going to be riding any bike with rose-tinted glasses. So I'll read it with a pinch of salt. Most of those first ride reviews, what I'm trying to learn is the specifics about the bike. So how has it changed from the old bike? What are the new features? What are one or two of the geometries? Sizing and how is that working? Wheel size, obviously now with mullets and with 29er, which direction have they gone? Adjustability with flip chips or head tube stuff. So I'm trying to learn the more technical or specific answers, plus a little bit about how it rides or how it rides differently to the previous model. But generally, you can get a much better feel when it's like a month later.
Yeah.
You know, or I mean, some of the big publications get to ride the bike for a month before launch.
Yeah.
Like Bike Radar and some of the big boys. Then that's maybe a more realistic one. And then the third one is feedback from friends and customers.
Yeah.
So I ride with a nice big mountain biking crew, and they've all got their own little tastes. And we'll go riding afterwards. We'll talk bikes,
Yeah.
you know, and I will try and absorb as much as I can from each of them about what this guy thought about his Magura brakes and what he liked about them.
Yeah.
What this guy thought about his new fork. What this guy thought about his new tire that he was testing, so that I can have an opinion on all of those things based on a bit of an amalgamation of opinions from my customers and my friends. So that's a big one. And riding groups. I mean, half the time I find out about a launch because it popped up on Instagram and one of my buddies saw it way before me.
Yes, yeah.
And then it's on the mountain biking group.
Crazy.
And then they start asking me
And
questions
you're having
about
friends
it.
who ride.
Totally. But they'll start asking me questions as a Specialized part, new Specialized helmet launches or whatever. They'll start asking me about it. I'm like,
Sorry, what?
No, I'll Google. I'll quickly Google, find a few reviews, read it, and have some answers. So, yeah, staying a lot of, I think the most successful bike shop owners continue to ride and continue to have a bunch of people they ride with in the disciplines they enjoy. So I've recently gotten a little bit into gravel and road, but very much on the side, mountain biking.
Yeah.
And
You sound like the... I'm worried we're losing him.
Listen, but we're dabbling because, you know, you want to try something.
Yes, yeah.
But it's still about mountain biking and for me, more gravity orientated and technical orientated rather than fitness orientated.
Yeah.
But that I've got a nice crew of guys around me that can feed me with information. Maybe they don't even know that they're doing it, but they are. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And we're back. Okay, so just to kind of bring it all together and wrap it up, I think the final question, where do we go from here? Where is retail going?
It's an interesting one because we're seeing a change. I don't know which change is going to kind of take hold, but we're definitely seeing lines being blurred. For example, Specialized as a massive international manufacturer, brand, etc., 10 years ago started buying up their subsidiaries so that they could own their distribution network. 2 years ago started buying up stores so they could own their retail network. So now you've got this blurred line between brand and manufacturer, importer and retailer. And how do they compete with me, you know?
Yeah.
And how do we work together?
Yes.
Because it's not going away.
Yeah.
I'm very valuable to them. They don't want to own 30 stores, but I realize that they've got some clout that I don't have. They can put stock into their stores. They can hire extra staff. You know, they've got their advantages. So there's definitely some blurred lines in that sense. We're also seeing some stores import products. So you'll have a store that's, you know, got a niche little product that they want to bring in, and now all of a sudden the store is also an importer. So that's quite unique.
Yeah.
And I will use good old Mr. Andrew Savage.
Yes.
And they import Banshee, one of
Yes.
my favorite brands.
Yeah.
If I wasn't riding a Specialized, I would highly consider a Banshee
Yeah.
or a Mercer. Those are kind of.
And for those watching and listening, please go around to Stoke and check those frames out. They are absolutely beautiful.
I mean, there are not many brands that can do aluminium frames like Banshee do.
Yes.
So, and available locally. But again, there's that blurred line between an importer and a bike shop.
Yes.
Obviously, you've got now the online space. So you've got your big boys.
So, yeah, that was my next question. Sorry. I know we said we're going to wrap it up, but I need to ask this. How does a brand like Specialized, and I'm going to name an online brand like Canyon, who is completely online and they do direct-to-door sales, how do you compete with something like that?
Totally. And thankfully we are a bit protected from it in South Africa because a lot of the direct-to-door brands can't operate in South Africa. We're too remote.
Yes.
To get us stuff on time and
Yeah.
to provide support becomes very, very difficult.
Yeah.
But it's a big question in Europe and a big question in America. And a lot of it comes down to the rider and what does the rider want? Is the rider self-sufficient and happy to build up their own bikes and deal with a call center or an email on support, or do they want to deal with a human being in a store?
100%.
If you want to deal with a human being in a store and have that relationship, because even as a bike shop owner, I still love visiting bike shops.
Yes.
The Woodstock Cycle Works is my local bike shop.
Yeah.
I'm there for coffees and chatting to Niels almost every day. So is that the interaction and the relationship you want? Then you're going to buy a brand from that store.
Yeah.
You're going to get support from that store. The other thing is with the e-bike world, e-bikes are hellishly complicated when something goes wrong, because you don't know if it's a mechanical thing or if it's an electrical thing.
Yeah.
And then if it is an electrical thing, is it in the motor? Is it one of the sensors?
Yeah.
Is it a button? Is it the screen? Is it the battery? That is the amount of time we spend diagnosing e-bike issues in the workshop is substantial.
Yeah.
And that you can't do with a direct brand. So if anybody wants to take one piece of advice on buying from this podcast, is that if you're buying an e-bike, buy the brand that has local representation.
Yeah.
Because you're going to need it. You are going to need it.
It's so funny you mentioned that, because I was speaking to Savage the other day. Isha and I had a chat before we got on this podcast about a new shock for Melissa. And I gave Savage a couple of different options of what we were thinking about. And he stopped me in my tracks and he was like, make sure the brand that you go for is a brand that is supported locally.
Yeah.
I think it's so important.
Yeah.
Because people get hooked up on the hype of having the latest and the greatest, but it's not something that once it breaks, you don't get parts for it, A, you don't get support for it, B.
And it doesn't even have to be as drastic as braking, just servicing.
Yeah.
So with suspension, a suspension service involves putting a service kit in. Now, you've got some obscure brand, and you now need to get a service kit for that brand. I mean,
it's as simple as getting a set of brake pads for TOP brakes.
yeah.
Fantastic, beautifully made, great. Try finding brake pads for TOP. And it's that thing. You want the latest and the greatest. Buy something that you can get local support from.
Yeah. And often that kind of advice will come from a bike shop and not buying it from a direct
100%.
online store.
And that's where the difference is.
But so now there's these blurred lines where it's like, okay, I'm not going to mention names, but we all know there's two very big, successful online stores in South Africa. Both of them have now gone more into their retail. I mean, the one has a massive retail store and the other one is a growing retail store. And then the flip side is happening where more and more retail stores are also putting their store online.
Online, yeah.
Online's hard because you compete more on price than you do on advice and
you can kind of justify the price in a store.
Yes, you can.
To a degree.
To a degree.
Yes.
I mean, as we've said, if you're a regular and you come to me and you say, listen, I can buy this online for this price, can you match it?
Different story.
I'm going to try match it.
Yes,
I don't want to lose the sale.
Yeah.
And I'm also appreciative to the customer for giving me that opportunity. The worst is when a regular rocks up with a full group set and says, I bought it online, whether it's overseas or local. Like, but why didn't you give me the option to try match the price?
Yes.
I know you bought it because it was a good price, but at least try let me match it.
Yeah.
But you're going to see, and we're going to see it more and more, where our local bike shops now put their stuff online. And it's happening because things are becoming easier to do. My point of sale system that manages my point of sale and my stock has a plugin to then go to an online store, Shopify or whatever. So I can do it. Yes, I have to upload some photos and I probably have to employ someone to manage the system.
But it's actually not as difficult as what
it's
you
not
would
that
think.
difficult. It's not that difficult. And so there's these blurred, it's not just a defined, like the old days, brand, importer, retailer, brick and mortar. People are definitely doing a bit more than just one of them. And then, of course, we've now got the thing that's on our doorstep is Amazon, and we're going to see how that affects how bike parts are sold. And I'll use Takealot as an example. So Takealot sell quite a lot of bicycle stuff.
Yes. Ridiculously priced bicycle.
I know. But as an example, the day Takealot the day Camelback put their product on Takealot was the day I stopped selling Camelback. Okay. Because I'm like, and I'm not going to mention the importer, but I said to the importer, you can't have your pie and eat it.
Yeah.
You're either going to be supporting your retailers or you're going to go online.
Yeah. You can't do both.
As soon as you do both, one of them's going to say, no, sorry, I can't help you anymore. Especially because there's lots of other great hydration products out there. Yeah. So I switched to Uzwe, you know, and I've seen brands go onto one day only, and I'm like, you know what? If that's the way you want to clear your stock, cool, that's fine. But then you got to know that traditional brick and mortar guys who can't compete at that price point are going to step away and go to brands that are more interested in selling through brick and mortar.
Yeah, for me, it's all about brick and mortar right now. Yes, it's great to go online and look for something at a good price, but to get that support from a Takealot or from a one day only when something goes wrong.
Yeah. Well, it's before and after. So I think it's buying advice before so that you buy not just the right thing, but the right thing for the kind of riding you're doing. Right. So that's the one thing. So it's the before purchase advice, and then it's the after purchase support. And I'm going to say this to anyone who buys online. If you can, give your local bike shop the opportunity to match the price, because then you get the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
And then if you're looking at online overseas, try buy local. Like there's a big picture economic thing here of just sending your money out of the country.
Yeah.
It's the same as if you buy on Temu or Wish, or you're basically just sending your money to China. You're not supporting local. So if there's an opportunity to buy local, and if there's an opportunity to do it through your local bike shop and keep that relationship going, and they match the price, then I guarantee you most bike shop owners are not going to take offense to you sending them a link and saying, hey, I found this online, can you match it? And what would it cost to install it? Because then maybe the shop can make a couple of $100 on the labor.
Oh, there you go. How is that for a closing note? Yeah. So guys, look, I think what we can take out of all of this is just like, firstly, yes, support local. I mean, we're all about that. That's what this series was founded on, was to get the local people onto the couch and have an idea of who they are and what they're doing and how they are there are so many people doing so much good in our cycling community. So, Ishe, on that note, thank you so much, giving us a little bit of an insight into what the retail store is, or the modern retail store is all about. And we wish you nothing but success.
Thank you very much.
I think what you have is something really special. We've been there. We've bought the bikes. We've had our ups and downs. We've figured life out. And here we are sitting on a couch and you schooling me on how to open my next bike shop.
Exactly. Well, let me tell you, it's much harder than you think it is.
It's never happening.
But it is a lot of fun.
We ride our bikes for fun. I don't think a bike shop's going to be in my future. But yeah, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And we wish you nothing but the best. And I'm sure it won't be the last time you're on. There are a couple of other things we spoke about. We'd love to pick your brain on.
There's lots of other topics we can talk about.
Yeah. So we'll have you back. But for today, thank you. We appreciate it. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.